happening?
One thing you have to remember, whenever you have big fire situation, it's always caused by the weather. The saying is Mother Nature starts the fires and Mother Nature puts them out, and that's very true in this case. You've got unprecedented high temperatures, lower humidities, and high winds. And when you have that combination in a fire-prone area, you're going to get fires, and they're going to be big, and they're going to be difficult to control. Mother Nature often starts these fires with high winds, high heat, and low humidity, and she will decide when they go out. Once it rains, you get cooler temperatures and higher humidity. And eventually winter comes and the snow flies, and that puts them out. The other interesting thing in Russia, when I was there, my impression was that they do a lot more with less than we have in the United States. We've got fire retardant clothing, they don't have that. We've got lots of customized mechanical equipment to help on the fire line, and they don't have that. So they're doing the best they can. The situation is, when you're in a once in 100-year event like this heat wave is, you're going to get fires, and you're going to have to deal with that. And if you've gone for years without big fires, you get complacent, and maybe you're not prepared for this. And it's difficult to be prepared. In fact, it's impossible to be prepared for a once in 100-year event like this. So the best you can do is herd the fire around. When you've got fires like this that are caused by a once in 100-year event, you can't put the fires out. People can't put fires out. All you can do is herd them around. So you got to look at what's in the fire's path. You got to look at homes, look at structures, and maybe set some backfires. So that's where you're lighting the fuel at an anchor point, and it's burning towards the fire, therefore giving you a wider fire break. You're burning all the fuel between you and the approaching fire. You're also looking at removing fuel, right? You're taking it, maybe cutting down trees, making a fire break, trying to hold it at a road. So the best you can do is herd it around. You can't really put it out when you're in this kind of situation. The fire is continually moving on, so you've got to move with it. But you can't forget to mop up. So where the fire has been through, that black edge, unless the fire is put out all the way through that, it could reignite again. The winds can change direction, and then you've got a fire where it was once out. You've got a new fire. So that's very tricky. You're also got to be. You don't want to get out ahead of the fire, because you don't want to be in front of it. You want to start at the flank. To fight a fire, you want to start at the heel, and then work your way up across the flanks towards the head and try and pinch it off. But in these fires, especially when they're wind-driven, you end up with hundreds of spot fires out ahead of it. And to try and keep your handle and getting those out can be very dangerous and very tricky.
No.
The over 500 fires that are burning across Russia right now are not going to have firefighters in every one of them. What you're probably going to have is firefighters on the ones that are most closest to structures and people and property. Some of them are just going to be left unattended because they will probably burn into other fires. Some of those 500 fires are big, but probably most of them are smaller in comparison. So if you're going to fly over it and look at an aerial map, you'd kind of triage the situation. You'd say, okay, some of these we're going to let burn because they're going to burn into another fire that was already there. Often when you've got that many fires, it's caused by lightning, where lightning has moved through an area and drops hundreds or thousands of lightning strikes. The big problem in Moscow, due to the smog and the smoke, is these peat bog fires. Peat fires peat is dead vegetation, several feet thick, and fire gets down in there and it smolders down in there. And if the peat is dry, it will go several feet underground and just smolder and burn. And what comes out of there is nothing but smoke. And smoke and smoke and more smoke. When a fire burns very efficiently, it puts off less smoke. But when it's burning like a cigarette very inefficiently, like it is down in these peat bogs, it puts off a ton of smoke. And they're impossible to get out, because how are you going to get water down that deep? Part of the problem with these high temperatures is there's a drought. So the peat bogs are dry, and you get fire down in there, and boy, those are difficult to get out, and you're going to be dealing with the smoke problem for a long time, unless the winds change or it gets covered up with snow. Or you've got a tree stump that was within a few 10 or 20 feet from a fire line, you have to remove that stump, that burned stump, because the fire will smolder through the roots and come up on the green side of the fire. It'll go underneath the fire line and come up on the green side the next season and start a fire. So there's a tremendous amount of effort put into the 100 feet around the perimeter of a wildfire or a forest fire in the United States to make sure that doesn't happen. All of the old fire dogs that I talk to about fire, they all say that over the last several years, fires have exhibited more fire behavior, more extreme fire behavior, and become more dangerous and more frequent over the last several years. In Russia, we're seeing right now these incredibly hot temperatures, which lend themselves towards drying out vegetation. And this time of year, the other thing you got to remember is that they are so far north that they get daylight for a long time. So you get a lot of radiant heating and drying from the sun in those northern latitudes that you don't get in other parts of the world. So that dries out stuff even further. So yes, when you've got these hot, dry temperatures, you're going to have more fires. And if the earth gets warmer, you're going to have more fires. February 7th, 2009 in Australia, 173 people died in one afternoon. It was the hottest day in Australia's history. And they were predicting it the day before. Yet, what happened was this catastrophe. And Australia, it tends to be a bellwether for climate change. And I think we're going to have a lot more fires and more severe fires in the years to come. When I was in Russia and working with the Russian smoke jumpers, it became very clear to me that these are tough sons of bitches. These are the toughest firefighters on the planet. They work incredibly hard with very little resources. You can do it for a couple weeks at a time, 3 weeks maybe, but you're pretty much fried at the end of those 3 weeks. They're long days with daylight most of the time. And it's exhausting. It's just exhausting. And but these guys are able to do it. It's what they live for, and they just love being outside and in the woods. And I have a huge degree of respect for the Russian smoke jumpers